Order. Today is Monday, October 6th, 2025. It is 7 p.m. and we are in the Aldermanic Chamber. This meeting has been duly noticed in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Alderman Tim Senate is here. Alderman Tom Lopez?
Here.
Alderman Ernest Jetty?
Here.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens, Vice Chair?
Here.
And Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly, Chair.
I'm here.
We have 5 in attendance. Also joining us this evening are Alderman Patricia Klee, Mayor Jim Donchis, and
Alderman Jetty?
well, Alderman Jetty's on the committee,
Oh, that's right, and Alderman.
and Alderman O'Brien.
So you think it's easy, isn't it?
I never thought it was easy. What's that? Oh.
I can't see her from here, but sorry. We'll talk about it. Okay, we will open up with public comment. If anyone would like to speak on anything being put in front of the committee tonight, please come up and say your name and address. Oh, you can come up. That was public comment. I didn't know if anyone wanted to public comment, but we'll get to you guys. You can come on up. Communications?
There are none.
Interviews?
For the Greeley Park Advisory Committee, we have Kerry Miller, new appointment, term to expire August 12, 2028, 35 Concord Street, Apartment 2, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Ms. Miller is not here,
Oh,
so.
I'm sorry.
On Zoom.
What? Oh, she's on Zoom?
Yeah.
Up
Okay.
top, yep.
I didn't see that.
Here.
Yeah, well, we can't see that yet.
Oh, yeah, why is that not?
I don't know, he was having problems with it, so.
Here he is here.
Can we hear her?
But, yeah. Because right now, that's the control room that we're
Can
seeing
you-
up there.
Say hi again, please.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
There she is.
Okay, cool.
So if this is Paige, you want to do.
All right. I didn't know Carrie was going to be on Zoom. Well, as you see from her submission, she's, of course, she's a resident of Nashua, has been here for quite some time, was born here. She's maintained, she works for the Nashua Transportation, for the bus, doing public relations for the bus system. She's had a plot at Greeley Park for a long time, lives on Concord Street, kind of, I'd say, a half mile south of Greeley Park about. And she uses the park very frequently, has loved the park for a long time, and therefore is perfect, in my opinion, for the Greeley Park Advisory Committee. And with that, and she used to work in the mayor's office, so she found greener pastures, and she's done a very good job working for the bus system. So I will turn it over to Carrie to add anything that she'd like to and tell the committee of her interest on the Greeley Park Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Ms. Miller?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather today, so I just asked if I could be on Zoom. Otherwise, I would be there. But yeah, I mean, as the mayor said, I've lived in Nashua for a long time. I was born here, and I really care a lot about Greeley Park. I live in the neighborhood, and I know that it's very beloved by everyone here in the city. It's so much life happens there, with all the special events and the sports fields that are there for the tennis and pickleball and soccer, youth soccer, and of course the public, the community gardens plot, which I have so enjoyed having the last few years. It's really just added a lot of joy to my life. I didn't know I loved gardening, but I really do. So, yeah, and I'm so happy and excited to be part of the advisory committee and, just have a voice and a say in all things Greeley Park. So thanks.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Alderman Klee?
Thank you. This is kind of an unusual question, and I'll ask others as well that have come forward for it. I'm the Ward 3 alderman, so I've been recently getting inquiries from people, and I haven't had a chance to speak to the mayor or anybody else about people who are interested in perhaps putting up some type of, I want to say monument, for lack of a better term, to Thornton Greeley, the benefactor, the person was that property at one point. Would you be interested in doing something like that, not just the keeping up with it, or that would have to be, and I've been making it very clear, not on the city's dime. But would you be willing to work with other outside organizations for something like that? Similar to, maybe not as big, but similar to what we have at Foster Square and so on, kind of honoring a person for their, what they've done for the city.
Oh, you're asking me? Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's okay.
yeah.
That's okay, Carrie.
It's a little hard when you're on Zoom.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lovely idea. That sounds nice.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, I don't have any comments or questions, I mean. I only have comments. But I did want to just thank you for coming forward. You know, Greeley Park is obviously a very special place in Nashua. You know, I think anybody who is willing to step up and dedicate their time to one of our resources deserves a lot of credit. And so I just want to thank you for your willingness to do that. And, you know, I'm sure you will be a good steward of the park.
Well, thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay. You're all set?
Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. We'll be taking up your nomination in just a bit.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Next up, we have the Historic District Commission. Paige Hultman, new appointment, term to expire October 14, 2028, 5 Bruce Street, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Well, next to me is Ms. Holtman, who I've nominated to the Historic District Commission. She has been the manager of Panucci's for quite a while now, very familiar with that area, and also is in the Nashua Rotary Club. She is a realtor with Purple Finch Realty. She's been involved in various service organizations, most notably she's the incoming president of the board of the Front Door Agency, which is right there on Concord, or on Manchester Street, I guess technically, right? No, Concord Street? Concord, yes. And she has been involved with the Historic District Commission because Panucci's and the next door property are in the Historic District, and therefore has had the opportunity to attend various meetings when changes at those properties have been suggested. It certainly has an interest in Nashua and in historic preservation, and will be a fine addition to the Historic District Commission, in my opinion. So I will turn it over to Ms. Hultman to tell you a little bit about herself and anything she'd like to say about the Historic District Commission.
Thank you. As the mayor said, I have been at Panucci's. He was kind enough not to say almost 30 years, coming up in April. So I have been done quite a few projects with the HDC over the years with improvements, and I've always been interested just in architecture in general. I live right outside the historic district. I've owned my home in downtown for 20 years, so I really understand the need for, you know, preserving the history of the older homes while also, you know, still encouraging growth. And you know, I love Nashua and just like being involved.
Great. I'll take questions. Alderman Lopez.
Definitely impressed by all of your experience, and I don't think there's a single organization here that I haven't had a positive experience with. Just out of curiosity, is the Front Door Agency, is the Normal House in the Historic District? Mm-hmm. That looks like it's a historic building.
It is.
So I appreciate you stepping forward with all the other things you have on your plate. I think you're going to bring a lot to that commission, so I'll be supporting your nomination.
Thank you.
Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So your resume indicates you're well qualified for this position. But you know, one of the things the Historic Commission is called upon is to enforce the zoning laws regarding the Historic District Commission, which means, sometimes, people come and they want to do something, and, sometimes it's, the answer is no, you can't. And, do you promise us that when there's a violation of the law that you're willing to uphold the law and say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that?
Yes, definitely. I've been on the receiving end of that no from the HDC, and people may not understand it at the moment, but it makes sense in the long run, and I hope to encourage and explain that to people if and when they get their no when they're asking for things. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up to volunteer.
I'm going to have to recuse myself.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you. Yeah, I've been on the HDC as the aldermanic person, as well as this year I'm the alternate to it. And the historic district is basically in my ward. So one of the things that have come, and Alderman Jettie pointed to that, is that you have to do that hard no. We actually did the hard no to the UU Church as well, and we kept sending them back, and we kept having to work with them. We try not to do the hard no. We tried to do no but, type of things. But some of the issues that do come up in there is people will come in and own a property that has been modified without ever having gone to the historic district, and it's hard to say bring it back when they're working on one part of it and we know the other part doesn't match. And so I want to ask, how would you handle something like that?
I definitely would, especially in the beginning, I would look to, the other members of the committee and how it is presented and how you do make those changes in the future when they haven't been up to code for the historic. So it would be interesting to learn that process. And
Thank you. May I continue? One of the other things that I found actually disconcerting, but is that in the historic district, we can't tell you what color you can paint your house. So it could be hot pink.
What's wrong with hot pink?
With green shutters and, and so on. So that can be a little frustrating, but we can't dictate that, I guess. I want to change, but we can't. But I lived in Chelmsford where they told you what color white you could have, so, but the city's never gotten into that. The only other question I have is, one of the issues they have a lot with the historic district is attendance. It's a big issue. You were probably one of those people that might have gotten pushed off because there wasn't attendance.
Definitely.
And so that's my question. You don't feel that those Mondays that you would have a hard time showing up for? It's only once a month, but...
no, definitely not. I think that's one of the top priorities is attendance, and I feel that unless I'm out of the country, I will absolutely be at the meetings and make it a priority.
I appreciate that, because it's very frustrating when you're on committees and these are all volunteers such as yourself that aren't being paid, so I'm not saying anything harsh against them, but it is frustrating when the applicants show up and we can't hold a meeting. So I do appreciate your attendance, and thank you for stepping up.
Yep. Thank you.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just actually had a quick question relative to your letter of interest, because you had referenced your work at Panucci's and then the property next door. Is it the yellow triple decker? Are you involved in the restoration of that, or?
So the owner is my direct boss, so I just manage his properties in a sense. I'm kind of his grunt worker when it comes to things. He is GCing the project, which I think is why it's taking a little longer than it should, because he doesn't live in town. But I have, I designed all the kitchens and made all of those decisions and make phone calls when people aren't showing up for him and things like that. So.
But that will one day look the way it used to?
That is the plan, yes,
It-
yes.
It's an odd property for me to take interest in, but it's exciting for me because when I was in 7th grade, a friend of mine lived on the 3rd floor. So it'll be, I might be one of the only people in this room that's actually been in there, so.
Yeah,
it'll be,
no, yeah, we've been, you know, working next door for all these years and seeing it go through a couple fires and just being vacant and,
Yeah.
so, it'll be nice. We've done a lot of work at the bar next door, so having the property, you know, to the right, looking nice is gonna be important.
I'm glad to see it adopted. That's, I mean, that
It's taking a little
clearly,
longer, but we're getting there.
it clearly shows qualification for the commission you've applied for here. So be happy to support your nomination.
Great, thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but again, I just want to express thank you very much for coming forward and your willingness to volunteer. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for being here. We'll be taking up your nomination in just a bit.
Thank you.
All right, next up for Housing Revolving Fund Committee, Skylar Wheeler, new appointment, term to expire September 9, 2028, 7 Vaggie Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire.
No, come on.
You come sit next to the mayor. Yep. Thank you.
Hello, nice to meet you all.
All right, Madam Chair, I'm nominating Skylar Wheeler to the Housing Trust Fund. The legislation creating the trust fund requires or suggests that one of the members have so-called lived experience. So Mr. Wheeler is a resident of Vaggie Village and was a graduate of Nashua High School back in 1917. Skylar has been active with the Tenants Council there at Major Drive at Vaggie Village, where he was vice president of one of the committees. Has been active with the Granite State Organizing Project, which has been involved with Vaggie Village for quite some time. When the redevelopment of a portion of the project was proposed, the residents in the Granite State Organizing Project get very involved in negotiating some changes to the proposal, reducing the density to some degree, increasing green space. But overall, Skylar will be a good addition because as a resident of a public housing project, certainly has a lot of experience with the problem of affordable housing in Nashua, or the lack of affordable housing in Nashua. So I will turn it over to Skylar and and so that you can go ahead and tell the committee a little bit about why you're interested in this.
So I just wanted to be clear on a couple of things. I'm former vice president of that resident council board. I not because I never wanted to stop doing the good work. I just had to leave for personal reasons, unfortunately. But here I am applying because I want to keep doing the good work of helping people. But yeah, I'm here because I'm very passionate about, you know, every human being having their basic human needs met. And I just feel that nobody should be on the streets. Not only do I have experience of living in public housing, I also have experience of being homeless a couple of times in my life. And that is a horrible and, in a lot of cases, traumatizing experience. And everybody should have a roof over their head and a place where they can go home to, feel safe at night, rest after a long, hard day of work. Yeah, and I'm just very passionate about having human beings having their needs met.
All right, thank you, Skylar. Questions or comments from the committee? Alderman Senate.
Thank you. I don't have any questions necessarily, but I did want to remark that I'm always happy to see Ward 7 residents stepping up and, taking on the task of doing the good work. As you'd mentioned, you and I are certainly neighbors. I live about a block away from you. And I think you're going to be a very strong advocate on this committee. I've certainly seen you at a lot of GSOP events, the housing forums, and I know that you have the passion for this. I know that you took part in the Voices of Major Drive leadership program that took place just a little over a year ago now.
A couple years ago? Are you talking about like the board in general starting to?
Oh, the little leadership class that you all took part in.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
a little over a year ago. Yes.
Yeah, and taking all that and taking on the next step and stepping forward, not just in the role of, we heard a couple weeks ago about, policy changes that we can make in regard to attacking the issue of the housing shortage and homelessness, but also the role that you can play in advocacy. And I think that you're going to be a very strong advocate for the folks over there, especially at a time when there's a lot of tumult coming over there with folks being relocated for the redevelopment. I think it'll be a very strong voice to have on that committee, and I'm happy to support your nomination.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Alderman Lopez?
Yeah. Have you had a chance to attend any of the meetings or observe them?
Any of these meetings for the?
No, not, this is just
for
us.
the committee?
I mean, the committee.
No, I have not. The first meeting that I got invited to was originally supposed to be on the 13th, but I heard that date was going to be moved possibly. But no, I have not attended to any of these committee meetings.
There's also, I think there's been a couple like non-quorum meetings, so it would have been hard.
Oh,
Go ahead,
that's a
Alderman.
great lead up to my next question is, are you comfortable feeling like you can attend the meetings? Are they going to be at a time that's, you're available, you have transportation if needed, et cetera?
So I can be, I've heard that the meetings are usually in the evenings, which is perfectly, actually really great. I'm actually a night owl, so it works out great. And transportation, I can take the bus here. The only problem is that there is no bus returning back to my area after 6 o'clock. During the weekdays, the number 3 bus, their last run is 6 p.m. But I usually have friends around. Like tonight, I do have a friend who's picking me up here and bringing me back home. But other than that, that's the only like transportation trouble I would possibly have. But I can figure something out possibly. I always do.
I appreciate you making note of the little bit of a flaw in our after-hours program, that it only goes north and south and then
There used to be a central route, and I don't know what happened with that. A lot of people were using that.
I would summarize a very complicated tale as for a while we ran out of drivers and then we had to rearrange everything and we need a book. But can you tell me a little bit about the GSOP's leadership program?
So the leadership program, it was a class for people who were interested basically on taking on like leadership roles and helping in the general community, such as being part of committees sorry, my brain's getting scrambled on words, but like basically a class for people who wanted to take on more leadership roles and build their confidence and be taking on a leadership role well.
Okay, so I would just comment that as somebody who's also in a public office, it's part of what you're kind of expected to do is bring information to the people that happens on the meetings, but you also have a lot of information that people at that committee can benefit from. So make sure you're getting your voice heard and representing the needs of the people the best you can.
Yeah, I actually already have plans in place for when I get potentially accepted onto position number 2 for the committee, that I would go back to, I would go to one of the resident council monthly meetings and talk to other people as well who, even outside of my neighborhood, who just have also lived in public housing or currently live in public housing, on what their thoughts are that I could help share. Because I could think of a lot of things that I could bring up as a representative of someone who lives in public housing, but I plan on talking to others as well to make sure I catch thoughts that I may have not thought of and bring to the table.
Well, you're checking all my boxes. I'm excited about your nomination and I will definitely be supporting it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I like what you have to say this evening. And, it's interesting that you mentioned about the bus, because, when it's stuff like that, that I hope, when these conversations come up in that committee, like, we're, maybe a developer's coming and they're thinking about putting affordable housing somewhere, and they're asking to use those public funds. I mean, those are the kind of questions, right? Well, is there access to public transportation in that area?
Right.
What kind of resources are in that area? So and that's your lived experience, right? And the importance of those kind of things. So I always say to somebody who is not used to maybe being on a committee like that, we're appointing you, use your voice. Speak up and use your voice. Don't be afraid. You have the backing here, or I hope you'll have the backing here. I certainly will support you. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Alderman Chetty?
So the mayor said you graduated from high school in 1917. And I must say, you look
It was
marvelous.
really, it wasn't 17.
just wanna say
It was
that.
2017. Sorry. 100 years off, what's the big deal?
I promise I'm not a vampire.
That's what I would say.
Different lived experience.
But, thank you for volunteering, and Ms. Miller is listening intently to what you have to say about the bus and the...
I don't think she realized
Her
that she's
screen
on
got
her
stuck on
screen.
because she's the last one to speak.
Yeah. She's just very big in the chamber. Are you all set, Alderman Jettie?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, great. So I want to thank you for stepping forward for this role. The Housing Revolving Fund is something that I've been very involved with, and having that lived experience was really important in building that conversation. The people in that room are incredible. It is also really important, especially at this time, to have the candor and the passion that you just brought in talking about your own lived experience, because we don't all have that. And as we're starting to think about what we want to see with a problem that we know is just continuing to get worse, I think your voice is going to be incredibly important. So thank you for stepping forward. I really appreciate that. I was also going to make the joke about looking wonderful for your age. I am the alternate to that, so I'm happy to bring you home anytime we have those meetings.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
To his home.
Huh?
To his home. You can't bring him to yours.
No, that's right. Tom, why? Always. Are we all set? Alderman Glee.
I just want to make one comment, and I will forego the age comment, but I not only want to commend you for all the, I think the great things you're going to be bringing to it, but I want to thank the mayor too for, I think many of your picks are good, but this is one of the truly excellent ones. I think you're going to do wonders, and the fact that you said you would make it work for transportation, everything like that, it just makes me in awe. Because I have a big bugaboo about people showing up to meetings, so the fact that you're willing to not only volunteer, but find a way to get there when you don't have the transportation, thank you so much.
Yeah,
It means a lot.
No problem. I'm more than happy to be here and help however I can.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we'll be taking up your nomination in just a bit. So we'll be taking up your nomination in just a bit. We'll make a recommendation after that. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah, we have one more person. Thank you.
Last but not least, Nashua Airport Authority. Larry Garrett, new appointment, term to expire August 31, 2028, 59 Ledgewood Hills Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to introduce?
This is approaching the chair here is Mr. Garrett. He has wanted, I have to say, to be on the Airport Authority for a long time, but there weren't openings, and Alderman O'Brien has recommended Mr. Garrett. And if you look at his resume, you will see that he went to Daniel Webster College, the Aeronautical Institute, some time ago, and has had a very significant interest in aviation ever since. I can tell you from having many discussions with him that he's definitely interested and will be a enthusiastic and active member of the Airport Authority, which is, of course, what we need. So I will just turn it over to Mr. Goret and let him explain his interest and anything else he'd like to add.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. As the mayor said, I've been knocking on his door for many, many years, trying to pursue a position on the airport authority. Aviation has, I've had a passion for aviation since I was 8 years old. I came to Nashua. I was born and brought up in Augusta, Maine. And I came to Nashua in 1972 to attend Daniel Webb, well, it was called New England Aeronautical Institute at the time. It was founded by Warren Rudman, Harry Sheffield, and Jim Tamposi. And I graduated from there. It was only a 2-year school at the time. And I graduated from there in 1974, transferred to the University of Southern Maine, and majored in public administration and government at the time. Upon graduation from the University of Southern Maine, I got on an airplane and flew out to Seattle, Washington, where aviation was king of the universe. I spent my primary flight instruction was done at Boeing Field International, and I just loved aviation at that. I mean, it was so deep in my blood. And what better place to be than in Boeing's backyard? I moved back to Nashua in 1978 and been a full-time resident since 1978. And I think I've been knocking on the mayor's door since 1978. We used to work out at the health club up in Merrimack. We'd be on the Stairmasters side by side. And,
Yeah, but I was better, so.
that's why he's thinner and I'm not.
Advantage of the Stairmaster, though.
But, and I sincerely and gratefully appreciate the mayor's appointment and the help from Alderman O'Brien.
Okay. Questions or comments from the alderman? Alderman Lopez.
Okay, so seeing your background in aviation, I can assume you're plain spoken. Are there things that you specifically think we should be changing? You seem pretty driven to, what do you think we can do with the Airport Authority?
Well, one of my concerns and passions is to try to get the college back up and operating. Back in the 70s and 80s, they had a very successful program with the FAA, a co-op program training air traffic controllers. I'd mentioned to the mayor that I felt that somebody from the city should contact our congressional delegation and try to get Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy up here to show him what we have to offer. You know, we have the college, we have the dorms, we have the tower building, we have the FAA on Northeast Boulevard, we have TRACON up in Merrimack, and I know there's a deep need for new air traffic controllers, and what better place to train them than here in Nashua, New Hampshire. I do have a personal issue with the present owner of the college. I've never met him, but I would really like to see the college come back into the hands of the citizens of Nashua if possible.
You are aware of the 2 resolutions we have later tonight on that topic?
I've heard a little bit about them.
Well, you don't have to say. After we do your discussion, I would hang out just so you can see.
Okay. I hope they're successful in that endeavor. I feel the Nashua Airport is an economic engine that has been sleeping for several years over there, especially with the college. If they can get the college up and running, maybe get into a joint partnership with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University down in Daytona, Florida, to have a northern branch and teach kids how to fly in the winter months, which they don't have that opportunity in Florida. And all the students that would come in there. At one time, I think Daniel Webster had 400 or 500 college students over there. And the money that they bring into the city, you know, has been sleeping for too many years.
Well, I definitely think our airport is something to be proud of, and I appreciate that you're stepping forward with a sense of vision and, have spent decades trying to get onto it. So, I mean, that's the kind of persistence we need, and I'm looking forward to your nomination.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Other comments, questions? Alderman Clements.
Thank you. So again, I don't have any specific questions. I do want to say that, I appreciate you stepping forward. You obviously have a lot of experience and background in this, and I think, the fact that you are from Maine, studied here, went out to Seattle, and came back shows that, you have a passion for this community. You want to see it successful, and I hope that you bring that, and I know you'll bring that to the airport authority, and hopefully we can implement some of the ideas that you have, because I think they're great ideas, and I would love to see stuff like that happen. So
Thank you.
So thank you for stepping forward.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank you for coming in with the passion that you have tonight for aviation and for the opportunities that we have in that area that unfortunately right now are just kind of sitting dormant. I wholeheartedly agree with you that the college and its proximity to the airport is an opportunity that's just being left on the table. I know when I was growing up here in Nashua, if I went 1 year, I went no years without at least one of my classmates in school. It wasn't me, obviously. I'm an accountant. But, wanting to learn how to fly, wanting to get behind the yoke of a plane and, get up in the sky. And that's an admirable thing for anybody to aspire towards. And there's still an appetite for it here because we've just seen a new ATC program open up at Nashua Community College. And that wouldn't be opening up if there wasn't the appetite for it with the students that are in Nashua. So I'm wholeheartedly happy to hear you say that we need this back here, that you'll advocate for that on the Airport Commission, and that we, can hopefully take the strides towards getting that back. Because to me, growing up, I always thought that was one of the coolest bits of Nashua, was that we had this college so hand in glove with our local airport, where kids I graduated with were going to take their first steps into the aviation field before going out to Boeing or Northrop Grumman or something like that. So I think you are absolutely the right choice for this authority, and I'm happy to support your nomination.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, I can't see you. Go ahead, Alderman Clegg.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman. I have an ex-husband who went through the same training program that you went through, and many of his friends and so on. And one of them went on to become an air traffic controller. Another went on to become a pilot with one of the bigger airlines. And all three of them, believe it or not, went through school as engineers. So it's a really great program that they had there at the Daniel Webster, and it's very interesting that you brought that up. I'm glad that the air traffic control classes are starting at the community college, because I think it's good to train local people to work within that organization and so on. But if I may, Madam Chairwoman, I used to live at Canongate, and one of the issues that we had was a lot of the flyovers. They had the helicopter training, and they had all different things like that. They built a new runway at that point in time. I don't know how much, and I apologize for not having quite as much information about the committee that you're on, but would you, I believe you would probably have say as far as like new runways, and I was even living there when the jets started coming in. And I know people say, well, the airport was here first, maybe, and maybe not. But are you willing to also consider any upgrades or changes to the airport that could affect residents that are there now?
It's an interesting question, because you want to try to balance everybody's needs, and of course noise can be very aggravating need that needs to be met. But what has to be followed are the FAA regulations. Nashua is unique because of back in the day, the homes that were on Indian Rock Road. The FAA had established a higher downwind altitude than what is normally required. The Nashua Airport is 200 feet above sea level, and the downwind requirements are 1,000 feet above sea level at the airport. So the downwind pattern was 1,200 feet. Normally, it's about 1,000 feet, give or take. But that was to help with the noise abatement. It's very difficult when you have, it's a trade-off, you know. You don't want to annoy your neighbors, you want to be a good neighbor, but you also want to bring in the economic engine that's sleeping, and it's just a balance.
May I?
Alderman Clee?
I agree with everything that you just said there, and balance is the key here. You know, wherever you live near an airport, you're just going to have to understand you have the noises, and I think living somewhere like in Canongate, which is up on the hill, we knew when there was a party going on at Daniel Webster College, believe it or not. I remember one time they had a reggae party going on, and we could hear it all because the noise just kind of traveled up that way. But I would like just, you know, consideration of that. I mean, we have planes flying all over us because they go to the Manchester airport. So, but at times, especially early in the morning when those jets are going off and the UPS jets and all that type of thing that are coming in can be a little bit. So I'm on the planning board. I always look at, we need development, but at the same time, I don't want to push the economic portion of it over the residents that have been living here for a long time. So that's why I asked if you would take that into consideration.
Oh, absolutely. Balance is very important to me. But on another note, there are people like me, if there are house lots available on the side of the runway, I'd be over there and buy the first house lot and live at the airport.
Yeah.
You know? And
May I? They actually did build all those homes that are right there at the end of that runway.
Right.
I can't think of the name of the street. I'm going to say Sharon, but right there, they built all those lots there. And I remember driving by them going, I hope they know what they're getting into. So you could have bought one of those.
There's a lot of aviation enthusiasts that love that type of environment.
If I may, yeah. My ex-husband used to like to go sit there at that, I can't even think of the name of the pizza place that's there. We used to sit there and watch the planes come in because, yeah. So I get it. Thank you very much.
All set. Thank you for your willingness to serve. My husband is an aerospace engineer who grew up in the flight path from Minneapolis, so I get the enthusiasm for that. And when we first moved to Nashua, I really enjoyed going to the Aviation Heritage Festival that they used to have. And we would go every single year, and I was really sad when that went away because it was such a cool thing to have right in our city. So your passion for wanting to bring that back, I felt that because I also, you know, when I first got here, was just so excited that we had such a gem in our city. So thank you for your willingness to be on this committee. I think Alderman O'Brien wants to ask a question, but I'm going to finish. I wanted to know what's in your binder. You brought a whole binder up.
I'm sorry?
You had a whole binder of. What's in your binder?
My binder? Just notes. I didn't know what type of questions you'd be asking. but,
Nothing too technical, I promise.
I'm getting old, and so I like to have reference notes and things of that nature. You know.
The last guy was over 100 years old.
I know.
I'm going to ask my husband about downwind patterns when I get home.
Now, Alderman O'Brien had mentioned to me that there's a $100,000 stipend for this.
Oh, he knows that himself.
You know, that was our stipend. Oh, excuse me.
I know nothing about that. These volunteer committees are at your leisure.
No, I really relish this appointment. I don't know as if I can express it adequately, but it means a lot to me.
Oh, you were knocking on the door all the time. We get it.
Yeah. Enough knocking on the door. Alderman O'Brien, did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. I do not have a question for Mr. Garrett. I have known Mr. Garrett over the years. He was a good friend to my father. That's how far back the the O'Brien connection goes in his private industry and dealing business. And he's been a long friend of Nashua and everything. But what I found out most impressive, I think, as you heard it today, as a matter of fact, I think we heard from 3 good candidates today, Ms. Miller, Ms. Hoffman, and now Mr. Garrett. It seems like the airport is very highly technical. You know, they rent out hangars, they do this, maintain, so it is quite an experience over there. I had dabbled in it for a few years when I was captain of the airport station, and I feel very, and more than very, extremely comfortable to recommend to you, Mr. Garrett, because I think he has more than the casual understanding of the subject matter at hand. He'll be able to be at the direction. And may I remind you, we got some, potential issues. We're trying to rebuild Station 5 as far as the fire department, and there's some negotiations with the airport authority and different other things. We have a property that is kind of close to the, incursion of the flight path out there off of Deerwood Drive. So it's a lot going on, and I think Mr. Garrett would be a proper addition to it. So thank you.
All set? Okay, we'll be taking up your nomination in just a moment. That is all of our interviews. My favorite part, applications to license hawkers, peddlers, itinerant vendors license.
There are none.
Appointments by the mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the following reappointment and new appointment to the Historic District Commission. Christopher Barrett with a term to expire September 9, 2027, and Paige Holtman with a term to expire October 14, 2028. Excuse me. To recommend to the following new appointment to the Housing Revolving Fund Committee, Skylar Wheeler with a term to expire September 9, 2028. To recommend the following new appointment to the Nashua Airport Authority, Larry Garrett with a term to expire August 31, 2028. And to recommend the following new appointment to the Greeley Park Advisory Committee, Carrie Miller with a term to expire August 12, 2028.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Unfinished business.
There is none.
New business resolutions.
We have R-25207, relative to foreign ownership of property located in the city of Nashua. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Motion before us is to recommend final passage. Discussion. Alderman Clements.
Thank you. So this actually came up because Alderman Moran wanted to do it, and it was based on the discussion that we had about, I think it was in August, about the Nong Fu Spring Company. And what this essentially does is it says that, the city clerk's directed to send a resolution to the president, governor, and all of Nashua state and federal representatives to basically look into this situation. Now, when this legislation was submitted, a few days after the meeting that happened here, the governor did start an investigation, and I think the results of that were released last Friday. So I still think that there is a benefit to releasing and moving forward with this, despite the fact that the governor has, despite the fact that the AG has essentially concluded their portion of it. I don't think that it would be harmful to move this forward at all. This just simply, is going to give it to basically all of the other entities that are out there, and essentially what it's going to say is that, Nashua, we heard the people that came here that expressed their concern, and we're doing something about it. Unfortunately, the legislative process in the city moves a little bit slower than we would like it to. But, you know, I think it's still important that we adhere to this and move it forward. So with that, I'm hoping that the committee will support the recommendation as read.
Alderman Senate, then Alderman Lopez.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I concur with Alderman Clemmons that I still think this is a worthwhile piece of legislation. I spent some time today reading the report that was issued from the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. And while I think that report told us everything that we were expecting it to, which was pretty consistent with what had come out of this chamber a couple of weeks ago when we had a big crowd with us, one of the things that stuck out to me was the, I guess maybe the breakdown in communication a little bit between the entities who were working to attract this company to Nashua and the company itself giving their assurance that they had gone through the process of submitting to the CFIUS, which is the Committee on Foreign Investment, who is the federal agency who's responsible for investigating this in the first place. And we're here today discussing this because a lot of misinformation and a lot of pointed fingers came out of that breakdown in communication. And so, you know, I signed on to this as a co-sponsor, and I'm comfortable passing it through for final passage, even where we are now with the information that we have now that we didn't have a couple weeks ago. Because to me, what this says is this takes our response, acknowledges that something very real happened, and it places it back in the agencies that are responsible and says, do your job. Because clearly something didn't happen with everybody being taken surprised by this. And instead, all the fingers got pointed inward at the mayor, at the Board of Aldermen, for a private sale that we did not have our hands in. And so I'm happy to support this, if anything, just to acknowledge, as Alderman Clemmons said, that we heard our constituents, we heard their concerns. Those concerns were valid, and we're going to direct them to the proper parties. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I would like, I guess, to ask through the chair to the mayor, what constitutes a hostile government? I know in recent months we've heard Canada's hostile, Greenland's hostile, Germany's hostile. So I just want to make sure that I know that theirs is not going to be pointed at something, you know, politically, or because I don't think the state thought China was hostile when they were like soliciting them. So.
Well, I didn't write the resolution, so I'm not sure. There are certain restrictions at the federal level, or the special review, the CIUS review that has to take place regarding certain governments, China being one of them. On that score, I found it interesting. I looked up, you know, this was a bottling, an iced tea or water bottling plant. I looked up, like, how many bottling plants does Coca-Cola have in China? 38. So China apparently doesn't see a big threat from an American bottling company having a facility. Then I looked up Pepsi, and it's far more than 38. So the fact that there is, I mean, I understand the concern if, you know, for a company that is related to, you know, some kind of national security type industry, defense, technology, but when we're talking about a bottling plant, I think certainly we want the proper investigation to be done, and so I think that's what you're asking for, but in terms of what the word hostile means in this resolution, I'd say it's ambiguous.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Basically what Alderman Lopez said was kind of what I wrote here on my notes. we've all talked about this particular thing, speaking about a very specific company. And in the past, we also talked about the Daniel Webster purchase and so on. But my biggest concern is the vagueness and the ambiguity of how it's written and what is written. It's not saying, you know, let's take this particular purchase and I think Northwest Boulevard, I think that's what it was, and have that looked into and so on. So my concern is in the future, putting Canada and Greenland aside, if we have a small business owner, you know, that may have come from China, that may have, for all we know, anything like that, and open up a restaurant, are we going to start, to what point do we continue doing this? Do we start calling for these investigations and so on? And while I think all of this was done in good faith, and I understand where it came from, I did not lend my name to co-sponsoring it because that was my biggest concern, is that we were kind of putting up these red flags, and where does it stop? What is the definition of hostile? What is, and so on. So considering that we already have had the investigation, the AG's office said that they weren't going to really be releasing anything more. We've seen the emails that have gone back and forth when you've read the reports, and when you looked at the NHPR and the Granite Eagle, I think it was. Those are the two things that I looked at. Granite Eagle put the emails out there, redacted, but they put the emails out there. And you can see that this was very solicited by our state. And the fact that the state of New Hampshire and the legislation didn't know, based on this particular company, a certain couple senators put through legislation that, per the state, someone from China can no longer have a business here in New Hampshire, which is concerning to me as well, because I look at these tiny little businesses of a restaurant or something of that nature. Again, where does it stop? So I'm not on this committee. I don't get to vote, but when it does come to the board, I'm not going to support it because of the vagueness, the ambiguity, and I really hate being contrary on such a sensitive subject, but I just feel like, you know, we're starting the McCarthy thing, and I know that's a big leap, but I get anxious about this, so thank you.
Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. You know, I'm troubled by this. I mean, when at first I thought, you know, the resolution was motivated by the concern over the, you know, the bottling plant. And since then, you know, you know, shortly thereafter, I mean, you know, right away, the mayor, you know, I think contacted the governor and asked, you know, for information about it. You know, he came to us and told us, you know, a lot of what was in the Attorney General's report. And the Attorney General's report kind of, you know, substantiated what the mayor had told us. And since the purchase of that land by the bottling company, you know, as other people have pointed out, you know, the state legislature passed a law making it a felony for someone from China to buy property here, which I don't know if that's constitutional and if that would, and certainly, you know, we as a city, you know, we really can't do anything about it. It's up, it's up to the state to regulate. You know, I'm not sure how we can regulate the purchase of land by foreign companies. You know, I hate to point out the obvious, but, you know, you look around, you know, there are a lot of foreign companies, you know. BAE is a foreign company. You know, Anheuser-Busch, the Elbit in Merrimack is an Israeli company. You know, a lot of foreign investors have invested money in the United States, you know, because they saw it as a good investment. We're in a global economy. And I understand a lot of people, have strong opinions about China, and but there are a lot of American companies doing a lot of business with China. And I thought, the threat that people perceived, with China buying this building in Nashua. I was thinking to myself, yeah, if I'm a, head of the Chinese Secret Service, and I'm thinking of ways of getting into America and subverting America, the first thing that would come to my mind was establishing a bottling plant in
With a
Nashua.
Chinese company instead of using anything else.
So I don't mean to make light of it. I think, I know people who know a lot more about these things than I do, find, the threat to be very serious. But, I'm concerned about this. I think, what this was looking for, has already been done. The governor ordered the Attorney General to investigate it. He investigated it. He made a report. He said, there was nothing, no law was broken, nothing bad happened. And most importantly, he affirmed that, that nobody in Nashua had anything, had much to do with this. So, I think the questions have been answered. I understand Alderman Clemens' point about how, it isn't doing much harm. But I have concerns about, lack of definition, who's, I think there's a federal law that has identified some countries, but they're not identified by this resolution. And I just think it's unnecessary. And, I'd be I'm opening to being persuaded otherwise, but, right now I don't feel comfortable supporting this.
Has everyone spoke? You already spoke, right?
I did.
Okay, I'm going to speak first if you don't mind. So I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to, okay. I'm a bit ambivalent about this piece of legislation. I think that there were definitely concerning points to the AG's report, as well as general concern over, paying 3 times the price. Why? At the same time, I have similar concerns about us limiting who can buy, whether that's even legal, and also what does that say and what does that start to do to the economic outlook for our city. So I don't know how I'm going to vote on it. I'm all ears for now, but I'm struggling. Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. No, I think people have to vote their conscience on this. I think it's one of those things where, for me, there are. I'll tell you that I thought that the senator and the person running for Congress who made this a national issue did a huge disservice to the people of this city and state and really country, to anybody that watched it, because there was more innuendo involved in their understanding of what was going on as opposed to facts. And so that's my issue with this. They whipped up the public into a frenzy and they got it wrong. And that's the part that aggravates me the most, is because it's not that people shouldn't have been maybe questioning what was going on. The problem is that there was finger pointing towards the city government of Nashua. And it was the state government that brought these people to our doorsteps. It was the state government that facilitated this transaction. And to have a state senator who's involved in the state government say to us, oh no, it's the city, when clearly the AG's report clearly defines that it's not, I think is concerning, number one. But two, this resolution, in my opinion, is intended to stop the innuendo and to prevent the innuendo from going forward. So it's asking these different federal agencies and state agencies to look into the facts. Now, whether or not they do, whether or not this goes to, the letter gets sat on and nothing happens, I mean, maybe that's going to be the case. But, I'm not looking for, I guess, I have low expectations of what's going to come out of this, actually, because the folks who are in charge, in Concord anyway, had to have months and months and months of basically fake news, what essentially was fake news, going out there to address the situation. It came to a boil and a head here in this chamber, and the person who started it didn't even bother to show up to the meeting. And thankfully, the mayor had looked into it, some of the board members here had looked into it, and we quelled it enough that, it finally got the governor to act. But that should have happened months and months ago. So essentially what this legislation is doing, at least in my opinion, is it's saying, yep, there's probably foreign-owned property in Nashua by people from hostile governments. I don't know. You define that. I don't care to define it, to be honest with you, in here. I think it's an open-ended question. But, and it's saying, just look into it so that we don't get another rumor mill going on. So that's where I'm coming from this. Now, you could argue it the other way, that, by doing this, you're going to create a rumor mill. I've heard that from plenty of friends who feel like some of you folks do here tonight. And I think I do think it's a matter of conscience. And I also think that regardless of what happens with this resolution, tonight or at the Board of Aldermen, I think we can at least, whether this passes or not, this chamber can at least be proud of the fact that we, first of all, allowed the public a forum to come and talk about this, A, and B, delivered facts and forced the issue with the governor to deliver facts, which came out on last Friday. So regardless of whether or not this passes, this board, in my opinion, has done its job. This is just icing on the cake.
Alderman Senate, then Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, again, this, I understand where the slippery slope conversation comes in, and I see that. That conversation is going to occur whenever you're talking about any foreign entity, whether they're considered hostile or not, when you begin regulating business within this country. I don't see this legislation as regulating anything. I don't think we have the capacity in Nashua to say that folks from I have the Secretary of State's website up here, so I apologize. Countries of particular concern.
That's what they said.
I don't believe we have the capacity here in Nashua to regulate land ownership or property ownership or businesses being run by folks from these countries, nor do I think we should. You know, I've said in this chamber before, and I'll say it again, Nashua is a welcoming city, and I support that because the sum of our parts is what makes us a great city. For me, this recognizes a breakdown in a process that should have happened and turns it back onto the folks who are responsible for seeing that process through and asks them to do it in the future. Because we learned from that report further, as I pull it up and remind myself of my notes that I jotted down on it, that whoever was interfacing on this deal sat on their hands for 7 months before letting anybody know where this particular investor even was from. That would have triggered the process. I have to believe that in my heart of hearts, that government still functions, and that if that had been done, then the proper channels would have been followed and all of this could have been avoided. And I don't say all of this as in this company coming to Nashua. In the grand scheme of, again, a water bottling company, I don't have a lot of concerns about that. I think a lot of that was overblown. But we have processes. They should be followed. They weren't city-level processes. So I am comfortable voting to reach out to our delegation that is called out in this, the president, the governor, and all of Nashua's state and federal representatives and senators, meaning the folks that brought this to our doorstep in the first place, and saying, we did our work, do yours.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you. I think what everybody has said here is very valid. But the key that I keep thinking of here is we call ourselves a welcoming city, and you brought it up yourself. How welcoming are we? If this legislation said to investigate that particular sale, if it said to investigate a company larger than such and such, and had more parameters on it, I could possibly support it. But as a welcoming city, I can't help but thinking that we are going down that slippery slope. I mean, who would have ever thought that as a government our government would be, whether they're doing it just to stoke the fire, but to call Canada a hostile. I'm sorry, but I can't help but think of the Japanese internment camps, because we had World War II and so on. It all started with one step of going down that road, and I'm frightened for it. I don't want Nashua to be part of this witch hunt, to be part of this, and you're right, it took 7 months before anybody did anything, and this did happen on Governor Sununu's watch and not Governor Ayotte's watch. But those particular legislators, and one who's here from Nashua, who brought this forward, did not do their homework and started this fake news and started all of this. This is, I worked on the, I was chair of the State Federal Relations and Veterans Affairs Committee. And so many times we did these resolutions that we knew were going to be round filed, but it made us feel good. Let's put it forward. 50% of the time they passed, 50% of the time they didn't. We would send it up to the delegation, and we send it up to the president and say, we want you to do this, knowing that it was going to end up literally in the round file. I don't want to say that that's what's going to happen with this, but I would rather put a resolution that says, I want you to look into this, and I want a formal report back. and then CC that. I mean, we put here, further resolved that the city clerk is directed to send a true copy of this resolution to the president, government, and all Nashua's state and federal representatives and senators. That's wonderful that we're sending them a copy of this particular resolution, but the resolution doesn't really state. It just states that problematic nature of foreign ownership of property in the city, most particularly when said property is acquired by entities ties to the government hostile to the United States. I talked about problematic nature of foreign ownership. What is a problematic nature of foreign ownership? And I have to look at future boards of aldermen and future mayors and future city officials, how they're going to define that. I sat up for 6 years up in Concord, and they would fight over words. They would fight over these things. And I think this is wonderful. And I'm going to say to all the people that are listening, I am the first one that is very happy that Governor Ayotte finally decided to do this. I don't think it necessarily went far enough, but we don't know if this company is hostile. We can say all we want that they've got ties to this and everything like that. We're now going to possibly have a second property here in Nashua, large property here in Nashua, that will go nowhere and just sit vacant. And are we going to slowly do this? Are we going to chase out BAE? Are we going to chase out this because, maybe that country is a little bit foreign? We talk about wanting to bring people in. We talk about being a welcoming city. This legislation is not welcoming. While I agree with everything everybody said, and I feel so split between this, I just can't help feeling like we're putting up a red scare. We're putting up all of these things. And again, I don't get to vote here, but I just can't support it when it comes to the Board of Aldermen, however it comes that way. Thank you for listening to me.
I actually have made a decision, and I think you're right. If the people on the committee would like to have the sponsor work on the language, when you look at this language, it doesn't even say commercial property. What unintended consequences could this potentially put out in the current political climate if we say any person who wants to buy property and has ties to a hostile government could be investigated? It's not ready for prime time. Alderman Lopez.
That was one point that I was going to make. Additionally, I would point out that we would be literally urging the United States and the state of New Hampshire to conduct all appropriate investigation based on their definition of appropriate and their definition of what entities and agencies need to be involved. We have, on the national scheme, a federal government which is extremely intrusive and is mobilizing agencies that many would say are not appropriate. Why would we urge them to do that here in Nashua? Why would we send a copy to the president and say, hey, can you review all of our citizens' property transactions to make sure there wasn't anything funny going on? That seems incredibly intrusive. And I mean, if they want to do it, there's nothing we can really do to stop them from the federal level down, because that's where states' rights are right now. But I don't know why we would urge it. And I'm confounded by people who would say they are a welcoming community when they would support legislation that could annihilate certain populations that are owning property, open them up to persecution. I don't see how that's welcoming. I think it's definitely a ticking time bomb. I think, if, for example, our president decided that Venezuela was hostile, anybody who owns a Venezuelan business is now going to be subject to investigation, and we are urging the full regulation of laws as deemed by federal and state bodies. I am a local alderman. I represent the people in my neighborhood. I don't speak for the federal level policies, and I don't have any control over those. I want to make sure that my residents and the people who are actually voting for me are being given as much liberty and freedom as they possibly can. I mean, I would care to look at what exactly constitutes a hostile government if we're going to start attaching the city's urgings to it. And I don't know that we have any control over what's appropriate and what's not. So I think the legislation is definitely problematic. I would support tabling at minimum.
Alderman Jettie, then Alderman Senate.
Yeah, so I think Alderman Lopez, raises an excellent point that I really hadn't thought of before. So, and I agree with him on that. But, what I have thought about before, and I've been reminded of it, is, think of the message that we're sending. I mean, if, the president is trying to, impose tariffs on foreign companies to encourage them to, build plants in the United States. So, let's say, I don't know, Mercedes-Benz was looking to, build a plant in the United States, and they read, or somebody pointed out to them, that we adopted this resolution relative to foreign ownership of property, and it says, the city of Nashua, being aware of the problematic nature of foreign ownership of property in the city. I don't know if they get to the point where it talks about, hostile to the United States, but, which governments are hostile to the United States right now? I mean, the United States is doing a lot of things that is not endearing us to the the global community at large. So I just think that that this is just sending the wrong message, and so again, that's why I can't support it.
Alderman Senate?
This is why we do the work in committee, so we can learn to hear other opinions and second guess ourselves, which I'm doing now. And I'm okay with that. I'm fine to admit when maybe I haven't always been 100% correct. I think at the bare minimum, this needs a severe language cleanup. I think whether we agree or disagree with the federally dictated terminology, it's out there for our disposal to incorporate into this, to make it clearer and more finite. I'm not going to shut off the discussion by moving to table, but I will say that I am open to that so that amendments could be made and could be discussed with the primary sponsor. I'll even reach out to him myself and catch his feelings on that. And if we can't come to it and this is the final version of the resolution, then I'd certainly consider a no vote and consider removing my name from it, given some of the opinions shared tonight. Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. I think it's a sad commentary where we are at right now in the country, and not because of anything that was said this evening or the opinions that were expressed here this evening. The commentary that's sad is that there are folks in this room that have no confidence in the federal government. Clearly, there are people in this room that have no confidence in the judicial system or our state government either. Because this is a resolution that essentially was asking for their help in investigating what might be hostile property. And the opinions expressed here, it's clear to me that there is no appetite for inviting in that type of attention. And I can certainly understand that. When you have things that are going on in Chicago, for example, where instead of the federal authorities going after a gang by going into the particular apartments that they occupied within a building, they went in and they overtook the entire building and then weeded out the people that they were looking for, detaining innocent folks along the way. And so when you put this resolution into that context, I can completely understand why you wouldn't want to support it, and myself included. You know, things have unintended consequences, and certainly an event like that happening in Nashua is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do, and was the exact opposite of the intent of this legislation. But to my colleague's point, this is why you do the work in the committee. This is why you have discussions on these things. You know, maybe there is a better way to do this. Maybe the better solution is to just leave it alone altogether. I don't know. It's frustrating to me because we live in a time when, you know, the institutions that we used to have faith in are literally shaking before us, and the foundation of liberty that we thought this country was founded on is cracking. And so I think that with all of that said, yeah, I think that probably the appropriate thing to do would be, at a minimum, is to table this. But I am more inclined to just, I guess I would be inclined to table it and to leave it there until somebody can come up with something better. But with the environment that we're in right now, that may not be possible. So.
Is that a motion, Alderman Clemmons?
No, I didn't want to stifle debate.
Nobody does.
We've debated it a bit. Alderman Lopez.
I would very much like to make that motion because I don't want to stifle debate either, but I do want to make sure we do table it.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any additional discussion points? The motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. Alderman Lopez.
I'd like the motion to table.
Motion before us is to table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that R25-207 goes on the table. Next.
Bear with me just a moment. All right. Jeez. Next up is R25-208, relative to the Daniel Webster College property. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to speak to this? You were the prime sponsor on this.
Yes, Madam Chair. I think this one's simpler than the last one.
Constructive.
Let's hope.
Given that state
You'll
officials...
determine that.
What?
It's getting saucy.
Given that state officials have expressed concern about Chinese ownership and have even prevented, via the law that has been discussed, future acquisition of property by Chinese entities, I think it would be worthwhile to ask them, and the federal government as well, for the funds necessary to buy a property owned by a Chinese entity, that being Daniel Webster College. Because we know we could make productive use of it where we'd own it. Now, in sort of investigating what has been, the property has a lot of potential. But I did go out there to see the hockey school, which is there, and I don't think it's well understood, and I had not understood the extent of it before the visit. But part of the campus, but it's, just parts of it, are occupied by what's called the Northern Cyclones hockey program. And this is a program that serves about 275 hockey players who attend they have various levels, but it's basically high school and then post-high school. The high school kids attend an online educational institution and then play hockey over in Hudson, where a rink is owned by double rink is owned by the Northern Cyclones. And then there is a kind of a post-high school program for kids that are a little bit older. They seem to be successful. They got a lot of people. They've got a lot of interest. I think a lot of people are there. The guy who runs it is a guy named Bill Flanagan, long hockey background. His daughter is named Callie, attended BC as a hockey player, was on the U.S. hockey team that won the gold medal in 2008, the women's hockey team that won the gold medal in 2018. So there's a lot of hockey background over there. But they're interested in the city buying this as well. And they've tried to buy it, but the price is too high for them. Were the city to acquire it, I think they would like to kind of move into a corner of the campus, maybe build some new buildings or whatever. We could work out something with them, and leaving the rest for whatever use we think it could be best be put. There are some fields and other things that could be used or developed. So what I'm asking here is for your endorsement of an effort to seek state funds and federal funds to buy this campus so that we could make more productive use of it.
Alderman Clevens.
Thank you. So have you, through you to the mayor, now a couple questions, I guess. First one is, would this be by eminent domain?
No. This would be about, I mean, no. I'd never even thought of that. I mean, the owner has made it clear through his agents that this could be purchased at the right price, and $20 million would do it.
That was going to be my question. Alderman Clevens.
Okay, yeah, because the problem with eminent domain, if we were to go down that road, is that the city could then would have to own that in perpetuity until it's, and really you couldn't even sell it at that point because it would be constitutionally prohibited in the state of New Hampshire. So so it's good to hear that this would be a private purchase, because eminent domain and what would be involved, you'd have to have some kind of private partnership, and that just would not be, it wouldn't be possible to do.
Right.
So I did not sign on to co-sponsor this because I was on the board of aldermen, and I forget what year it was, when, I think it was 2015 maybe, when, I can't remember, 2016, whenever the Daniel Webster College went out and they did the teach out, Alderman Cookson had made a motion for the city to look into buying that property. And the amount of, at that time, the amount of like infrastructure work that would have had to gone into something like that for the city to own that property was tremendous, to the point where Southern New Hampshire University didn't even want it. And so I'm thinking now we're almost 10 years out from that, and I've got to think that there's 10 years more of degradation in there. So, it doesn't hurt, I guess, to ask for money from the state to purchase that, because I do think that there is an opportunity there, and if it's not coming directly, and I say directly from Nashua taxpayers, then I think that that's something that's worthwhile to pursue. But I think putting in Nashua tax money towards that, I think would be a mistake, because again, the amount of infrastructure upgrades that property needs, and this is again from a report that was almost 10 years old at this point, would be problematic. So I'll support the resolution to get the funding to try to get the funding for this, but I couldn't support using Nashua tax dollars for it.
Now, were we to get the money for this from the state of New Hampshire, we wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily want to keep all these old buildings. Although you'd want to work closely with this hockey school. They would, it's kind of spread all over the place, and that's kind of the way they are, but I think they would like a more concentrated area. But if you wanted to use at least some of the buildings, and they did too, they're reluctant to make any improvements to these buildings because they don't have a long-term relationship. It's like a lease. I think there's a term of years, but it's not very long. I think it runs out in a couple of years or something like that. So they can't, or they don't want to put, money into a building which then they don't have in 3 years. So some of the buildings may not be worth saving. You're right about the eminent domain. We definitely do not want to go in that direction.
Alderman Jettie, then Alderman Clee, and Alderman Lopez.
Thank you. So, again, through you to the mayor. So there's a hockey school. Is there a hockey rink there?
No, but they skate over in Hudson, so they own a double rink over in Hudson, and they bus the players over there, and they have hockey, and then they have the educational program via online at various buildings on this campus, the Daniel Webster campus.
Okay, because I drove over there, and I saw the Cyclone sign and everything, and it was on a building that looked like a hockey rink. I didn't have any idea what
it's like an athletic building, but it's not, it's like a gym, but it's not a hockey rink. And I think what they have in there, it's probably what you're looking at. What they have in there is a lot of workout equipment, weights and exercise equipment, exercise bikes, stuff like that, for these players to condition with.
Okay.
But there's no rink there.
And,
Alderman Jettie, do you have a follow-up?
so I'm wondering, the other thing is, why do you have $20 million in the resolution? It's assessed for like 1.3 million.
Well, it's assessed more than that, but it's not 20, because that's what the seller says he'll sell it for.
Okay. Well, it is assessed for that.
1.3?
Yeah. I mean,
I
that's,
think it's more, Ernie.
well, there are 3 parcels.
Okay, all
So
right.
the main parcel with all the buildings you're talking about, there are 2 house lots, with houses on them, but then the main parcel is assessed at 1.3. So I'm expecting somebody to say, like they did about the bottling plant, they're paying X amount more than what it's assessed for. What's going on there? I'm expecting that kind of outcry. I mean, I understand that buildings are assessed. What they're assessed at doesn't mean that the seller is willing to sell it for that value. But so you're telling us that you somehow obtained information that $20 million is what the seller is looking for. But I also wonder why this resolution? Why don't you just tell the economic development director to send a letter to the congressional delegation and the state and everybody, saying that we want to do this, so we're interested in this, and are they willing to support us? What's the advantage of the resolution?
Well, we could go as you suggested, as you just mentioned. I think it has a little more authority if the entire city speaks through a formal vote, as opposed to, well, I just think it carries a little more authority that way. Now, Michelle here is Chief Assessor. I think that's her title. Assessing Manager, excuse me. Chief Assessor is Bob Gagney, but Assessing Manager. And, she's looking up the assessment. I think there's more than one parcel or something, because we're getting more than $20,000 of taxes out there, I believe, but I think we'll find out for sure. They bought it for 12.5 at the auction. When Daniel Webster was a nonprofit college, it seemed to be going pretty well, but then whoever controlled the college sold it to ITT, a profit-making, then publicly traded company. And ITT was in making some questionable student loans, and eventually went bankrupt. And when it went bankrupt, it didn't have many hard assets, meaning real estate. And it was the goal and mission of the bankruptcy court, which was in Indiana, to sell the assets for the highest amount they could get and to distribute the money to the creditors of ITT. So the court in Indiana held a bankruptcy auction, and this buyer bid $12.5 million, by far the highest bidder. Now, Southern New Hampshire University was interested, and I think they put in a bid, but it was far lower than that. It was like $3 or $4 million, which of course is what the city was rooting for. But the bankruptcy court, sells to the highest bidder, and this owner was the highest bidder, and they paid 12.5, and it was about 16, 17, somewhere in there. So they've had it a while, and 20 million is what they say they would sell it for. Were it city money? No, I wouldn't pay $20 million of city money. But we've got a lot of concern expressed at the state level regarding Chinese ownership. So if they're concerned, maybe they'll give us, if they're as concerned as they say, maybe they'll give us the money.
Any other questions, Alderman Jettie? I have Alderman Clee next.
Just a comment. It just, when you put 20 million in a resolution, that's pretty much, you're not going to be able to
Probably,
buy it for anything less.
But of course, we have to ask the state government for a specific amount. So that's the downside of being a public entity. You can't get money secretly. So were we a private buyer? Yeah, we wouldn't put a number out there, but we're not. So if we're going to ask them for money. Now, Cindy Rosenwald has already sponsored a bill to ask for $20 million. Now, that will be introduced when the legislature goes into session in January.
Okay, thank
All
you.
said, Alderman Jettie. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I am in support of this. I mean, obviously, I look at the $20 million as high. I also, and Ms. Mayor, I don't know if you could, through the chairwoman to Mr. Mayor, but if you could answer this. I know in the past when outside Nashua, meaning state or federal monies, are used to purchase something, if we were to sell off parcels of it, we can't keep the profits. I believe it has to go back to the person, because what we're actually asking them is to give us this money and not to lend it to us. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, how this would work, I don't know. It depends what the legislature would do, right? If they were to appropriate this money, they could place such a condition. Right. For example, what you're thinking about, among others probably, is the acquisition of the Broad Street Parkway, now Veterans Memorial Parkway property, and when there was excess and that gets sold, at least there's some wrinkles to that, but in some situations, the money goes back. For example, the property there at the corner of Broad Street and the Parkway, when it sells, which I think it's going to, that will go to the, federal government, federal highway.
Yes, and that was actually what came to my mind, was that particular one. So we would just kind of be the conduit of selling and so on of that. I really think that's probably where it would go. I think if we were to purchase it and get this, much to what Alderman Clements had said, many of those buildings are probably going to be in rough shape, but if we could carve out what the city would want, such as the fields, I know we talk about low-income housing, but a third party could come in to do that. The city shouldn't be developing necessarily low-income housing, and so on. But I'm for this resolution. I think this is just step one. If they did, which is unlikely, but if they did say we would have it, at that point, we could put some of our own conversation to it as what we would hope for it to be, to sell off, for us to keep the fields, maybe one other small portion of it, so we can do something for the residents of the city. But I think all of the things that have been brought up here, and I do remember when that sale, I think it was, I want to say 2016, because I think it was just as I became a state rep, that conversation had happened. And I remember a lot of people having those arguments, and I do remember much of the conversation was that there was a lot of asbestos, but we didn't really go in and look and do drilling and so on, so we didn't know what we would get into, and that's kind of why we did that sidestep to it. So it's not like the city blew it, it was just there wasn't enough time, I think, for us to fully
We would have had
investigate,
to
if I
come up with
remember.
more than $12.5 million. I mean,
Yeah.
we would have had to outbid this guy, and who knows how high this,
Exactly. Right.
Well, it's a sealed bid, but
Yeah,
we would have had to be higher than $12.5 million to actually get it.
right, and we
Now,
didn't know what
Michelle
the
might have an
building-
answer here.
Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, can you just say your name and title
Oh,
for-
Michelle Welsh, Assessing Manager. The value for 2024 for the address of 20 University Drive, excuse me, is $18,392,900.
Could you repeat that?
$18,392,900 for 2024.
That's the assessed.
Yes, for 20 University Drive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
So I just wanted to express that I think that I appreciate how the resolution is presented. It was brought up, why do it this way? And why not just have economic development work on it? And given the notoriety and the visibility of the apparently soft power invasion that we're all being met with, I think it makes sense to make sure there's a very clear starting point and a very clear response to the concerns or claims that are associated with that. I can't tell you how many projects as alderman I've been involved with for years, only for someone to be like, what's going on with French Park? You guys doing some construction over there? Or, what's up with over by the tannery? Are you guys ever going to clean that? Like, yes, we're doing it forever. But then when they ask, well, where can I get information? I have to point to 50 different locations and updates and meetings and all that kind of stuff. I think having a clean resolution that says, hey, we want to do something about this is a very good starting point, especially if we have a state senator who's willing to accurately rally for Nashua's needs. I think this shows that we're with that person and that we actually are serious about moving forward with this. I would also just add as a note that the Riviera University, when we were looking at the Elm Street Middle School project, Riviera University had a whole presentation about 2 hockey arenas and all this stuff that I guess was just more of a brainstorm, and I never really saw it follow through, but there might be other partners interested in partnering in like causes in Nashua. And I know that the soccer community is very interested in a stadium or indoor soccer area. So there's a lot of different applications that you need in Nashua that could really build our resources, but you need a large enough square footage, footprint, and opportunity. So I think this could be that, and I think this resolution asks for the resources to take advantage of that in the way that we've done so successfully over the years. But, we are also trying very carefully to be very careful with our budget, with our funding, and this isn't an ideal time for it. So I think by reaching out to the state, we are giving ourselves the best of both worlds, where we can advocate for some of the best economic development opportunities we see without necessarily sidelining other important priorities.
So I've come full circle in the conversation here. I'm supportive of this. I think it makes sense for us to look into this, especially if it is state or federal money. My concerns with the assessed value was, are we going to end up buying a piece of property that we can't then turn, whether it's because it's, as the infrastructure is crumbling or there's just not the market for what we paid for it. So I feel a little bit better with the assessed value that was just brought forward. But I still, express my concerns about if we own it as a city, now there's going to be maintenance, now there's going to be other things. So I think I'm okay to green light this initial step, but I want to make sure we have enough information to, really understand what purchasing it would look like and whether that's a flip it around and there's other people who are interested, or if we are truly going to keep it as a city, and then what does that look like for us?
This hockey school, they've got some money. I mean, I think they're paying considerable rent. I think it's my recollection, but I'm not sure. But I asked the guy, how much are you paying? I think he said $30,000 a month. So, the only reason, so they would be a partner we could definitely, were we to ever get this, there's someone we could definitely work with in terms of trying to see a redevelopment of the site. It's just that they don't, as I already said, they don't want to invest a lot of money in something where they don't have a long-term commitment.
Yeah, understood. Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, I just want to apologize, for my, misstating the assessed value. I was looking at the GIS site, and what I thought was the assessed value was actually a previous sales value. And so I was pointed to the right place, and indeed, it is assessed for $18,392,000. So I apologize for any.
Well, that's more than I thought it was, so neither of us had it right.
But for the record, I wasn't wrong.
Never. Motion on the table is to recommend final passage. Additional conversation? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. New business ordinances?
There are none.
Tabled in committee. We will not be taking our 25-158 off the table. Right? Yeah.
Which one kill it?
No, well, if anyone wanted to, sure. Or O25-056.
I'll make a motion to remove from the table O25-062.
Hear the motion? All those in favor?
I'm sorry.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, I didn't. What was the motion?
Motion to remove from the table O25-062.
Oh, okay.
God, there's a lot going on in the chamber.
I heard the 62,
Can
and
we
I,
call
wait a
for
minute.
quiet on the set, please?
Hey, sorry, people can't hear what's happening. Okay, so the
So-
vote is to remove from the table, O25-062. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Now before us, we have O25-062, increasing the tax credit for a service-connected total disability. I'll make a motion to recommend final passage.
You've heard the motion. Would you like to speak to this?
Michelle Welsh, Assessing Manager. I'm just here in case anybody had any questions about the actual change in law.
Okay. Do you want to sit with us, and I'll have Alderman Clee give us a quick update, since this is, or you're both your co-sponsors. Who would like to talk to it?
Did you want to speak to it, or would you?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, please.
Alderman Jettie.
Thank you. So, so this ordinance is a result of the state legislature passed HB 99, which increased the, let me back up. So with veterans tax credits, there are, different categories. One is called the optional veterans tax credit, and it's in our ordinances as 295-13. And then there's, so the optional veterans tax credit is a tax credit that's provided to, veterans who meet certain requirements, like having served, during a time of war or conflict. and that's $750 in Nashua. And then there's the All Veterans Tax Credit, which applies to, it expanded the scope of it to include, veterans who didn't meet the requirements of having served during identified conflicts, but who had served at least 90 days on active duty. So that's called the All Veterans Tax Credit. That as well is $750. And then there's a separate category for veterans who are totally disabled. And in that, under the old law, or the most recent law before it was just changed, allowed towns to provide this extra credit for disabled veterans up to $4,000. And Nashua had adopted that, but only to the extent of $2,000. So prior to HB 99, totally disabled veterans in Nashua who qualified could get a tax credit of $2,000, plus they could also get the optional veterans tax credit of $750 for a total tax credit of $2,750. So HB 99 increased the authorized cities and towns to offer veterans who were disabled, totally disabled, increased it to $5,000. But it said if you take the disabled credit of whatever your town chooses, you give up the right to claim the optional credit of $750. So veterans in Nashua who were qualified for the total disability, we're getting $2,750. They continued under HB 99, without the city doing anything, they would continue to get the $2,000 for total disability, but they would no longer be eligible for the $750 for the optional veterans credit. So they would lose $750 on their credit. So what this ordinance does is it says that Nashua, increases the credit for disabled veterans from $2,000 to $2,750, so that our veterans, will not get any less. They'll get the same thing because the state took away that extra $750 from them, and so we're adjusting the credit that they're entitled to as disabled veterans to make up that difference so that they stay even. They're not losing, they're not getting anything more, but they're not losing anything. Now the assessing department did an analysis, and I guess, oh, there you are. I'm sorry.
I had her come sit with us.
You were standing right there. And so, could I defer to the assessing manager to explain what effect that would have on city finances?
So currently, we have a total of 160 disabled vets. 122 of those currently stack the veterans credit, the optional veterans credit with the disabled. So that leaves 38 people that would get an additional $750 versus the only $2,000 they get now, which is a total of $28,500 additional that the city would have to pay, but you are saving the actual vets that have always gotten to $2,750 from losing $750.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Alderman Clemmons?
I'll let Alderman Clee, she was the co-sponsor of this, go.
Just never see your hand.
That's okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciated this coming forward and when it was brought to our attention and so on. If I may ask a question of why would these 30 not stack it?
Well, because you can only stack it with an optional vet credit, so for the all vet credit, they are not allowed to stack it. So some of those veterans may not qualify to be able to stack it because they are an all vet, or that they clearly just didn't apply for both because they are two separate credit amounts with two separate different applications.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. When the legislation came through, if I may continue, when the legislation came through of HB 99 and basically stopped the no double dipping, and all of these 122 people would lose that 750, I think that was a low blow to them. And I appreciate, in this case, I think the state put through the legislation to try to keep it clean, number one. I wish they had not. I wish that they had basically taken, I also think it was to help those 30 and so on get a full credit for disability. I would rather them have put all of the veterans credits, the all vets and so on, into this category. I think that would have been better and allowed them to do stacking, because this is going to create some havoc. I do appreciate they went from the maximum 4,000 to 5,000. When this first came through, I know there was conversations about maybe we should put this up more than 2,750 and give them all that. If there's anybody considering that, I would not recommend it. I think that keeping people whole is the main thing. We are benefiting 30 extra people in it, which, I think they deserve it as well. When you're a disabled veteran, there's a lot of stumbling blocks in your way, so I think we should do as much as we can. I've always been for helping the veterans. I was a little concerned when we pushed the credit up, not because we were, originally when we pushed the credit up, not because we were doing that, but because I still felt that we were unstable of knowing how many veterans are not going to qualify once they redefined the 90 days and so on. So that was my real concern for fighting against it. And for full disclosure, my husband is a veteran, was not a disabled veteran, but he was a veteran too. So I benefited from that $750, and I still had voted against us pushing it from 50 to 750. So anybody who thinks I'm against veterans, I've already stated that I worked with that. I've been working with veterans since I was 18 years old, working with the Department of Defense, working with the Veterans Affairs. So I have done work very diligently with veterans and volunteer and so on. So I'm never against veterans. I'm there for all of it. But knowing that we put the 750 through, I don't want to see anybody lose it. If 30 more people gained for it, so be it. These aren't just your average veterans. These are veterans with disabilities. And I know there is another veterans credit that basically kind of wipes out all taxes. Is there not? I can't
Yes,
think of it.
but that
We've
one,
only got 4
we
people
only
on.
have four people in the
4 people
entire
on
city
that.
of Nashua that qualify for that one.
Right, and Manchester, I think, has 1. I mean, I
Yes.
really looked into that. So this does not affect them because we're already wiping out their
Correct.
taxes, those 4 people. And that's a more severe disability and so on.
A very severe,
It's very
yes.
severe, of multiple limbs and so on.
Yeah.
So just for anybody that's listening, this is not that same credit.
Correct.
I just wanted to make that perfectly clear, but thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you,
Alderman Clemmons?
Of course. Thank you. So, yeah, I think this is a great idea. I think, making people whole is the right thing to do. Disappointed to hear that the legislature, I don't know why they cared, right? But as far as raising the cost, it occurred to me tonight that we ought to, and I think I'm going to submit legislation to do this. We ought to tie these into inflation up to the maximum, in my opinion, so that they go up every year automatically. That way, this doesn't have to become a political discussion here in this chamber. It's just something that automatically happens. It goes based on inflation up to whatever the state decides is the amount. I know that that's, might be, you can argue that either way, but I know that's kind of off topic a little bit, so I appreciate the leeway. But obviously, these credits to our veterans and the other credits that we have too for, elderly folks and disabled folks and things like that, I think they're important. We want to recognize these folks for, just especially the veterans for their service, and for our seniors for all that they've done throughout their lives to better the community, and of course to give help to our disabled residents. I think, in regards to this just makes total sense, and leave it to Nashua and leave it to Nashua's legislators here around this horseshoe to outdo the state once again. They come down with something that says, we're going to tell you, and we come back and say, no, we're going to tell you. And in this case, we're taking care of our veterans. I completely support it, and thank you for bringing it forward.
All right, motion on the floor is to recommend final passage.
So, Madam Chair?
Alderman Jettie?
So I'm embarrassed to say that, I was on vacation. I wanted to thank the committee for, postponing this. I know it was up, it came up at your last meeting, and I asked that it be tabled until I could be here, and I appreciate your courtesy in doing that. But when I had a chance to review the language and in comparing it to the statute, I found a few inconsistencies, which I thought, I talked to the legal department, Attorney Clark, who wrote the original ordinance. I talked to her about it. Unfortunately, I admit, it was my fault. I didn't talk to her until this afternoon, but she agreed with the changes that I recommended, and she sent them to Donna, but I think it was after Donna had left. I was expecting that there'd be a goldenrod copy here for us to consider.
Oh, they ran out of goldenrod paper.
What's that?
They probably ran out of goldenrod paper.
Yeah, no, I doubt that very much. We have a big supply. So I don't, I have the copy that Attorney Clark prepared, and I don't know if I could, make copies for you, or if I could just read it to you. It doesn't change anything. It only changes the form. It doesn't change any of the substance. And if I could read it to you in a form of a motion to amend.
I would love to hear your motion to amend, and we can put it in the packet afterwards.
So if you have the original in front of you, you could follow along. So I move to amend O-25-062 by replacing it with the following. The City of Nashua hereby adopts the provisions of New Hampshire Revised Statutes annotated 72:35 as it may be amended from time to time relative to, and this is the new language, the optional tax credit for service-connected permanent and total disability in the amount of $2,750, which shall replace the tax credits pursuant to RSA 72:28, 28-B, 28-C, and 36-A in their entirety and shall not be in addition thereto. So this is the language used in the statute. Of note, the statute no longer refers to just total disability, but adds the words permanent and total disability. And so the references to 72, 28, 28B, those are, the optional credit, the all veterans credit, and I can't remember what the others are, but so, it's what the legislature requires, that people who choose or qualify for the permanent and total disability amount, whatever the city chooses, in our case, $2,750, cannot be increased by the $750 that's available to all other veterans.
Okay, thank you. The motion is to amend. Alderman Clemmons.
So I just want to clarify, in layman's terms, your motion there, though, leaves in place those other tax credits for those that want to take those independent of this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this only takes away the $750 from people who qualify
Right.
for the larger amount.
Yeah.
So some towns, we offer, our credit for disabled veterans is $2,000. Other towns go to the max, $4,000.
Yeah.
And now that's been increased to $5,000. I assume that other towns will be going up to $5,000. But we're going to change it to $2,750.
Yeah, thank you.
All set? Alderman Clee?
Thank you. Perhaps you can answer this question to me. Does this affect the widows and?
No.
So, right, so
It
they'll
would-
still get the 27?
Correct, yep. Should a widow qualify under the same, she or he would still get the same amount. It would not affect a surviving spouse.
It just,
Yep.
I think I know the answer to this, but if there were two veterans owning the property and one veteran passed, they would not get both of the
They could get both.
both of the
Yes,
credits?
yes.
One as the widow?
One as the widow and
or
one as
widower.
the actual veteran,
Okay,
yes.
okay, I just want to make sure that
Yep.
that stays in place and that
Yes.
we're not
Yep,
kind of
no,
messing with it.
right,
so-
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Thank you for the clarification.
I've learned so much about the veteran tax code this evening.
Well, I'm glad that I was here to answer any questions for sure.
So are we.
Yes. yes.
Agreed, agreed. Okay, the motion is to amend. Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion is still to recommend final passage as amendment.
Heard the motion to recommend final passage as amended. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have public comment.
Good evening. My name is Paula Johnson. I live at 15 Westbourne Drive. I have to apologize for the mayor talking to me. He said that we should charge me $10 a month for that chair. And I said to him, that's only because I broke my kneecap over the winter time and I can't sit on a bench. And you can see I'm limping again. But anyway, I want to say thank you for voting for the Veterans Tax Credit for the disabled. They've given so much to protect borders on other countries. And, you know, they deserve our praise for them. The other thing I'd like to speak about is to Alderman Kelly, you were talking about 80 Northwest Boulevard, about how much they paid the new owners. Well, the amount of money basically was the assessed value. I just looked up on the card, which I think changed, but the assessed value on the card is $15,628,900. But what they paid is actual market value on it. So we don't really know what the commercial is, because the commercial, they've underassessed commercial, as we're seeing now, what's going on here. When someone pays that amount of money on a piece of property and your assessed value is $15 million, then that's telling us that, you know, we keep assessing the residential properties, that maybe it's about time we start taking a look at the commercial again, because, so to take the burden off of us, the homeowners, and that would change. Things happened during COVID, but now COVID's over with, people are back, people are coming out. It's time, instead of doing an assessment on us next year, do it on the commercial, and you're gonna see a difference in the commercial, because homeowners, the residential homes are kind of flat right now. They're not really going because there's nothing to sell. The other thing I'd like to say is about the Daniel Webster College, which is giving you basically about the assessed value and the market value, because the mayor's willing to pay $20 million for that property, and the assessed value was $18 million. So he's willing to pay a couple $1 million more on that property, which I have a real concern over, to buy that property. You know, you're asking for federal money, state money, but is there going to also be, the state or the federal government going to say there has to be a city matching amount to it? So I would be cautious about this. Right now, nothing's going to happen. The federal government is shut down. The state doesn't have money, probably. No one's going to get money right now because there's nothing out there. So I would say walk with that property with caution, and thank you very much for your time. Have a great night.
All right. There's no other public here. General discussion? Remarks by aldermen. Anybody? Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam President. While I hate to be dissenting from the previous comments that were made, one comment was that we are underassessing businesses, and then a comment that we would be paying too much over the assessed seems to be kind of contrary to what was said during that comment period. But if I may, I want to thank my colleagues here for the lively discussion on both the Daniel Webster and the Nafungu property. I think, as was pointed out, and we continue to point out, the work happens here in the committee, and excellent work happened by all of you. I'm not on this committee, but I appreciated being able to be part of this conversation. Even if I were contrary to some people, I think we talked it out. I don't disagree with almost anything anybody said here, even though I said I wouldn't vote for it. I think all points, and I think this body truly shows what the other governments should be doing. We disagree, we listen, we kind of maybe change our minds to some point. There is no hostility, no anger, just really good, clean discussion, and I'm so proud to be on this board. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion? Alderman Clemmons.
Motion to adjourn.
Heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.